You feel it, don't you? That itch under your skin. That hum in your bones, like something shifting quietly, deliberately just beneath the surface. No alarms, no parades, no confetti. Just a whisper in the dark that says it's time. And you know what? It is. Whether you're ready or not, whether the world agrees or not, it's already happening. You, the overlooked, the underestimated, the one who sat in the shadows while the loud ones played king, you've been called. Not asked, called. Oh, the shift, funny word, isn't it? Sounds so polite, so clean. Like it tiptoes in with a clipboard and a calm voice, but real shifts. The kind that flip your life like a table no one wanted to admit was already broken. Those don't come with warning signs, they don't knock. They kick the damn door in. And the best part, by the time you notice, it's already too late. The game has changed. The floor has moved. And you're standing there trying to play by yesterday's rules in a world that doesn't even speak that language anymore. Everyone thinks they'll know. When it starts, they picture sirens, flashing lights, maybe some kind of dramatic thunderclap. But no, that's not how it works. The real shift, it creeps. It slithers, it brushes up against your life like smoke under a door. Subtle, quiet, just enough to make you question your own instincts. And while you're busy trying to stay comfortable, it's already rewriting your entire script. That's the punchline C. By the time most people realize they're in a new chapter, it's already halfway written. They're clinging to old labels, old roles, like actors who missed the cue that the scene changed. And the audience, oh, they're watching. Confused, bored, ready for something real. But here's the kicker, you're not like them, are you? You felt it. You didn't wait for someone to tell you. That itch in your brain, that twist in your gut, that flicker in your eye every time someone says, just be patient. That's the shift. Talking, whispering, laughing, but most people, they cover their ears. Too scared of what it means. Too in love with their excuses. They want the world to change for them. Not because of them. Cute, pathetic, you already started to walk different. Think different. And maybe you're still pretending you haven't. Maybe you're trying to blend in, keep the peace, keep the smile. But underneath it all, you know something's already moved. The foundation isn't the same. The lights don't hit quite right. And that gnawing feeling that you can't ignore anymore. That's the moment calling you, laughing at you, daring you see you don't get to stay still and expect the world to wait. That's not how the dance works. You either learn the new rhythm or get dragged across the floor by it. And the shift doesn't apologize, doesn't slow down. It's not some motivational poster, it's a storm. And storms don't care if you remembered your umbrella. They come, they cleanse, they reveal. And once it starts, the truth you've been dodging suddenly shows up in high definition. People around you, the ones who smiled so sweetly when you were small, they're going to panic, because now the lights are changing and your shadow's getting big. Too big for their comfort. They'll call it a phase. Say you're changing, like that's a bad thing. Of course you're changing. What else is the point? Stay the same and rock politely. No thank you. Growth isn't cute. It's messy. It's violent. It's necessary in this shift. It didn't come to ask for your permission. It came to remind you who you were, who you are. You didn't lose the map, you are the map. Every mistake, every breakdown, every sleepless night where you stared at the ceiling wondering if this is all there is, that was training. Not punishment, not bad luck, training. For now, for this, for the part of the story where you stop surviving and start unleashing, but you'll have to let go, won't you? Let go of what you thought life would be. Let go of who you were told to be. Burn the blueprint. Tear up the script. Because the old version of you, the obedient one, the predictable one, the one who played nice and said all the right things, that one doesn't survive the shift. That one gets eaten alive. But the version that's clawing to get out, the one with fire in the eyes and no use for permission, That version thrives in the new world. The shift doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to strip you of the lies, the masks, the chains. It leaves you raw, yes, but it also leaves you ready. And if you're still looking around waiting for a sign, here's the punchline, you're standing in it. Oh, they tried to make you fit, didn't they? Tight little boxes with tidy little labels. Normal, good, reasonable. Boxes wrapped in ribbons of guilt and stamped with the approval of people too scared to live out loud. You remember it. Sitting there nodding, agreeing, biting your tongue while the fire in your chest begged you to scream. They told you to be patient, to follow the steps, to color inside the lines, and when you started to ask why those lines were even there, oh, how quickly the smiles faded. You were never one of them. And they knew it. That's why they tried to clip your wings before you even knew you had them. Not because you were broken, but because you were different. Dangerous, they sensed it. That twitch in your laugh, that spark in your stare, the way your silence did more than their noise ever could. You made them uncomfortable. Not by doing anything wrong, but by simply existing. Because people who see through the charade, they don't need to speak much. The truth just leaks out of them, and you tried, didn't you? Oh, you really gave it your best shot. Tried to smile the right smile. Speak the right words, believe in the fairy tale they told you. But deep down, in the part of your soul that always stayed awake, you knew something didn't fit. The suits didn't fit, the jobs didn't fit. The people, they especially didn't fit. Conversations that drained you, traditions that bored you, systems that made you want to scream through your teeth. But you played the part. You played it well. Until you couldn't anymore, because when something in you is not meant to be caged, no matter how pretty they paint the prison, the walls start to crack. First it's a thought, then a question, then a roar. And before you know it, you're staring at your reflection like it's a stranger wearing your skin. You start seeing the cracks in their game, the puppets on strings, the rehearsed smiles, the empty applause. And the best part, they hate that you see it, because seeing it means you don't play along. And not playing along, that's a threat to everything they've built on compliance. They want people predictable, comfortable, docile. But you were born allergic to mediocrity. It's why boredom felt like death. It's why routine made you want to set the room on fire. You weren't meant to follow, you were built to disrupt. You weren't born to walk the path, you were meant to burn it and carve your own. And that's the part they never planned for. That someone like you would stop pretending. That you'd stop apologizing for thinking different, speaking different, being different, and now. Oh, now it's too late. The mask has slipped. The beast is breathing. You're remembering what it means to move without asking, to speak without censoring, to exist without permission. And while they're still trading their dreams for approval, you're lighting a match with your name on it. Not to destroy, but to be seen. To finally take up the space you were always shrinking in. They'll call it arrogance. They'll call it rebellion. They'll call it whatever makes them feel better about their own smallness. But don't be fooled. That noise, that's fear. They're afraid of what happens when someone stops conforming. Afraid of what happens when someone like you remembers who they are. Because someone who no longer needs validation is someone no one can control. And you weren't made to be controlled, were you? You were made to crack the frame, to speak the unspeakable, to do what others are too scared to try. That's why you never fit. Because you weren't meant to. You're not a puzzle piece. You're the hand that flips the whole board. You're not an echo. You're the voice that makes the room go silent. The world doesn't need more followers. It doesn't need more copies. It needs originals. The ones who scare people awake. The ones who stop asking for seats at tables that were never built for them. And build their own thrones out of rubble and grit. And if you still think the goal is to be liked, then you're not ready. Because the truth is, when you finally step into who you really are, they won't strike it. They'll stare. They'll whisper. They'll run. But that's how you'll know you're finally walking the right way day. Oh, sweet, delicious doubt. That little whisper in your skull that shows up exactly when the lights start flickering, When things finally begin to move, when momentum starts to hum like a warning in your bones. Everyone talks about fear, about failure, about falling. But they never talk about doubt. Doubt is the quiet killer. Doubt is the surgeon with no face, slicing pieces off your confidence while smiling through the mirror. And the twisted part, you invite it in. You feed it. Dress it up in reason. Call it being realistic. See, when you get close to the door you know, the one you've dreamed of since the first time the world made you feel like you didn't belong. Doubt shows up with a smirk. Because doubt doesn't care about where you came from. It only cares about stopping you right when it's your turn to enter the room they said you'd never get into. It waits for that perfect moment when the stakes are high, when your hands start to tremble with possibility. And then it slides in, drapes itself around your neck like a familiar ghost, and whispers, "What if you're not enough?" But here's the trick most never figure out. Doubt doesn't visit the lost. It doesn't sit with the cowards. It only shows up when you're close. Close to becoming something they swore you couldn't. Close to breaking chains that generations before you couldn't even see. Close to becoming a threat, a real one. Not just the loud mouth in the back of the class, but the one who finally stands on the table and flips it over. The one who doesn't blink anymore. That's when doubt starts sweating. That's when it gets loud, because doubt knows what you're about to become. It sees the future. It sees what happens if you don't stop, if you don't retreat, if you don't shrink. So it turns up the volume. It replays every failure, every laugh, every eye roll you endured when you spoke your truth. It paints your past like a warning sign, not a battlefield. It tries to convince you that who you were is all you'll ever be. But deep down you know better. You feel it. That pressure isn't anxiety. That weight in your chest isn't fear. That's power. That's identity trying to come out of hiding, and still the battle rages. Because the closer you get to the life meant for you, the louder doubt starts screaming. Not because it's real, but because it's desperate. Doubt is the last boss, the final gatekeeper. The dragon you face before you enter the treasure room of your own becoming. And it doesn't play fair. It hits below the belt. It finds your softest spots. It calls you by your old names. The ones you tried to bury. The ones they gave you when they didn't understand you. It digs them up, parades them in front of you, and dares you to flinch, but you've come too far to flinch, haven't you? You've bled for this, cried for this, lost people, places, pieces of yourself for this. You've sat in the dark too many nights wondering if any of this was real, if the dream in your chest was just some cruel joke. But it wasn't. And you know it wasn't. Because if it was, it would have died already. But it didn't. It got louder. It grew teeth. And now it wants out, and doubt. Doubt's just the last test. The final laugh before the curtain drops and the real you steps out. Because doubt can only exist in the space between who you were and who you're about to be. And the longer you linger there, the stronger it gets. But once you move, really move, it shatters. Because doubt has no grip on action. It only clings to hesitation. It lives in the pause, in the overthinking, in the maybe. But once you step forward raw, messy, trembling, it loses its voice. Most people, they turn around at the sound of doubt. But you're not most people. You never were. That's why you scare them. That's why they tried to stuff you into neat little boxes. That's why doubt sounds like them, because it is them. Their fear, their regret, their shame, echoing through your skull, trying to trick you into believing it's yours. But it's not. It never was. It was just borrowed noise, and now it's time to cut the cord. Not because you're sure, but because you're ready. And readiness, that's what doubt fears most. Aha, the masks. You know the ones. Smiles stapled to faces, eyes that scream behind designer lenses, words rehearsed like lines in a play no one asked to be in. Every day, every hour, everybody pretending. Pretending to be okay. Pretending to be happy. Pretending they belong in the circus they built for themselves. And the audience. Oh, they clap, all right, they clap loud for the fakest acts. They celebrate illusions because the truth, it terrifies them. You show them something real and they'll call it chaos. You show them your scars and they'll flinch like you just pointed a weapon. Maybe you did. You see, this whole world runs on pretending. Everybody's so afraid of being exposed that they hide behind labels, status, filters, polished profiles. I'm fine, they say, while choking on the weight of everything they've swallowed to stay polite. They say it's all good with eyes that haven't seen rest in years. And what happens when someone like you walks in and decides not to play along? Oh, they notice. They always notice. They stare. They whisper. They clutch their pearls and shake their heads because you dared to say, "This is me." Take it or run. And here's the twist no one talks about. The people who scream to yourself the loudest are usually the first to panic when you actually do it. Because your honesty, it makes them itchy. Your rawness, it threatens the fiction they've dressed their whole lives in. When you stop apologizing for who you are, you hold up a mirror they can't look away from. And most of them, they hate what they see. It's not about being liked. That was never the point. It's about being real. And real people. They scare the programmed ones. Because when you're real, you don't need their approval. You don't need their applause. You don't chase their validation like a starving dog begging for scraps. You stand there loud, flawed, fearless, and you say, "This is me." No costume. No script. And that kind of presence, that kind of fire, it sets off alarms in the hearts of those still asleep. The truth is, they want you to shrink. They want you quiet, easy, digestible. Because if you step fully into your power, they have to question why they never did. And that makes you dangerous. Because nothing threatens the status quo like someone who no longer seeks permission to breathe. Someone who doesn't flinch when the crowd turns on them. Someone who doesn't blink when the lights get bright and the pressure builds. Because you were made for the fire. You like the heat. That's why you've survived this long. That's why they couldn't break you. They call it arrogance. You call it finally waking up. They call it rebellion. You call it remembering. They'll throw every word at you, crazy, selfish, dramatic, just to keep you inside the lines. But you were born to cross them. You were born to laugh where silence was expected, to scream where whispers were the rule, to build your castle from the ashes of every bridge they tried to burn behind you. They didn't expect someone like you to keep going, to keep rising, to keep becoming. In the moment you stop hiding, really stop here. Leela just Brett, not just to the system, but to every person still hiding from themselves. Because when you shine, you expose the shadows they've been dancing with. When you tell the truth, you peel the mask right off their faces without even touching them. And they hate you for it, not because you're wrong, but because you're free. And people still in chains, they'll do anything to convince you you're wearing some too, but deep down, you know the difference. You've tasted freedom, even if just for a second. And once you have, nothing fake will ever satisfy you again. You've outgrown the charade, the plastic smiles, the empty rituals. And yeah, they might call you intense. They might call you too much. But better too much than never enough. Better brutally real than beautifully fake. Because at the end of the day, when the curtains fall and the crowds go home, the only question that matters is, did you show up as you, up just that? Another copy in a costume. They don't tell you this part? Not in school, not in church, not in those sweet little motivational posters with sunshine and eagles flying majestically over mountains. No. They tell you to be strong, to believe, to trust the process. But they don't tell you what it costs. They don't whisper in your ear that when the light finally finds you, it burns. That when the calling comes, it doesn't sound like a choir of angels, it sounds like everything breaking. Everything. Inside and out, you want to be chosen. You want to be called. You want to be called the one who rises. Then prepare to be ripped apart first, because the moment your time comes, the pressure changes. It's not about surviving anymore, it's about carrying the weight of who you were, who you're becoming, and who everyone else needs you to be. You think the world claps when your number gets called. No, it watches. Quietly. Closely. Waiting for you to fumble. Waiting for you to choke. Because the minute you're chosen, they stop rooting for you and start betting against you. Oh, it's cute at first. Look at them go, they say, clapping like trained seals. But once they realize you're not just lucky, not just a fluke, once they see you're built different, destined, dangerous, they turn. Not all at once, not with pitchforks. They do it with silence, with distance. With that look, the one that says, "Who do you think you are?" And that's the real initiation. That's when the elevation gets lonely. That's when the air gets thinner and the applause dies and it's just you and the echoes of your own choices. But here's the part that stings the part. You'll lose familiar faces, friends who said they'd never change, family who smiled while secretly hoping you'd stay the same. They liked you small. They liked you uncertain. You rising. It offends them because your becoming makes them question why they never did. You start to see it in their eyes, that discomfort, that subtle panic. Because when you stop needing them, they stop knowing how to love you. And then there's the voice. Not outside, inside, the one that sounds like you but sharper, meaner. It doesn't scream. It whispers, "Are you sure? What if you're wrong? What if you fail?" And the sick joke is that voice knows you. Knows exactly where to cut, where the soft spots are. It's been with you since the beginning, collecting ammunition for this very moment. And just when you're about to step into the light, it shows up in a tuxedo, ready to sabotage the whole show. So, what do? You bleed anyway, you tremble anyway. You walk through the fire not because you're fearless, but because you're done living like you don't matter. You answer the call, not with a trumpet, with a whisper, with a breath, with one shaky step that says, "This is mine. I don't need your permission to take it." And suddenly the world looks different. Not prettier, not easier, but realer, sharper. Like someone finally turned the lights on and you can see every crack, every crevice, every green with teeth behind it. And the pain. Oh, it doesn't stop. But it stops owning you. Because now it's part of your story. Part of your armor. Every betrayal, every breakdown, every sleepless night, they become bricks. Heavy, jagged, but yours. You build with them. You build you with them. And the people who left, the ones who doubted, you stop chasing their understanding. You realize they were never rejecting you, they were rejecting the version of themselves they saw reflected in you. The brave version, the loud version, the free version. So when they say you've changed, you smile. Because yeah, you have, and it was never an accident. You didn't stumble into this. You were called, marked, set apart. And you finally stopped trying to convince people who weren't meant to understand. Because chosen ones, they're not here to be liked. They're here to disrupt, to rebuild, to tear the old gods off their fake thrones and plant something new in the ashes. That's why it hurts. That's why it's hard, because what you're building doesn't exist yet. It's never existed.